Hey guys, I'm back, and you know what that means? I'm still pretty bored. I went from fixing the deck with my parents to watching my older sister teach my mom and my grandma how to play Uno, which was an interesting thing, to now going back to this, because what else is there to do? I also bought a new camera lens. It's a 18 to 10 millimeter lens by Canon, so maybe it'll be a little bit better. Yeah, back to your regular scheduled program. So as many of you guys know, the game apocalypse is actually upon us. What I mean by that is all the gyms are closed and people are going kind of crazy buying a bunch of gym equipment. All the gym suppliers that I mentioned in the last video, they're actually sold out of basically everything. Except for Red Fitness, they still got some barbells and they still have some benches, I believe. I think they still have the FB 5000 bench that I mentioned in the previous video. What are people resorting to now? I've actually been going to the Facebook Marketplace because I've wanted to buy some bumper plates just because of my deadlift platform. It was making a lot of noise. When I went on there, I realized a lot of people were actually scamming other, I guess, not knowledgeable buyers. I saw people putting a competition calibrated deadlift plates for basically what they're worth brand new, and then when you look at it, they're actually kind of scuffed and old, and they're marketing as saying that, hey, well, I bought this for $1,200, I'm selling it for $900. When I went onto the site, I did that math, and you can actually buy a new one. Let me turn off my phone. You can buy a new set if it was available anyways for around the same price. But with that aside, I've noticed that a lot of people actually do have, I guess, a barbell at home. They do have a bench to bench on. They have some kind of a way to squat, but not a lot of people actually have a way to deadlift. So I guess today's video is just to let you guys know on how I decided to build my deadlift platform. As I mentioned in my previous video, the person who I got the inspiration for this deadlift platform from was actually from a YouTuber called Allan Thrall. He owns a gym called Untamed Strength. It's a strongman gym, and he actually made this really good video about how he built his deadlift platform, actually all of his deadlift platforms at his gym. You'll need 3 4x8 inch plywood, and they have to be 3/4 of an inch thick. So you're gonna have 2 of them stacked on top of each other, and the third one you wanna ask the Home Depot, the Lowe's employee, or whoever you're getting it from to cut it in half. For this option, I would really try not to go cheapo on it, just because it is gonna be your deadlift platform, and if you go on a cheaper alternative, the wood tends to bow a little bit. You don't want it to bow because if you drop your bar, it's gonna smack against the ground, amplifying the noise, or it's gonna make you a little bit unbalanced and the bar won't be able to settle in place when you're about to pull. So nobody wants to have that, especially when you're pulling, I don't know, I don't pull a lot, but you guys might pull like 500 pounds. So if you're pulling 500 pounds and you just feel yourself shift, you might hurt yourself just a little bit. So you'll need at least 2 4x6 3/4 of an inch stall mats. You'll need some wood screws, 1 by 1/4 of an inch, some wood glue, a sharp knife to cut the stall mats with. I actually just bought I think it was like a $4 box cutter knife from Lowe's, and it works pretty well. Some wood stain and polyurethane sealant, but that's kind of up to you as well if you want to be bougie about it. I didn't really like the plain oak look. It was just too bright and didn't really fit in with the, I guess, the dark and grunginess of my basement. So I decided to stain it a little bit, and I decided to put a couple of layers of polyurethane over it, just so when I sweat or I don't know what other bodily fluids gets on it, I can mop it off without damaging the wood itself. So to start off, after you guys buy your plywood, you're gonna have to put 2 of the pieces of plywood together. So in order to do that, you want to put a good layer of wood glue on top. I put I think a 1/4 of the bottle on there, and I smacked the other layer right on top of it. I made sure that if there was any bowing that was already going on, I would press the bowing together because I knew that I was gonna glue it, and I was gonna screw it together so that it would make it a little bit more flat. After I did the gluing, I put around 8 plates, I think, a 45-pound plates on top, and left it overnight to dry so that I can have a better and more solid seal. If you're gonna be building a gym, I assume that you guys already have some weights, or if not, you can put some furniture, I don't know, some patio furniture, bags of rice, water, I'm pretty sure you'll figure out something. Just put something heavy on top of it basically and let it sit overnight. While I was letting that sit overnight, I actually started to stain my platform. So I went over it with 2 layers of stain at first, and it made it look pretty dark. Waited overnight because I couldn't really do anything else with it. And the next morning, it wasn't as dark as I wanted, so I put another couple layers of stain on top of it, letting it dry throughout the day, and then finally putting my polyurethane or sealant coats on top of it just so that I can make it more water resistance and I won't be damaging the wood or anything like that. While I was waiting for that to dry up, I started actually working on the 2 pieces of plywood. So I chose a number that was divisible by 8. I went every 8 inches and I drew a little red dot to show that that's my pilot hole. I need to drill into it earlier on just so I can have a little hole to guide where the wood screws are gonna go through and it won't crack the wood. So if you want my exact numbers, I went 2, 8, 6, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72, 80, 88, and 94. So if you're wondering why I chose 2 and 94 as the start and end points, is because you can't really start at 0 inches. Well, I mean, you can start at 1 closer to the end, but if you did do that, it's gonna probably split your wood when you do drop weight on it or when you start drilling your pilot hole and putting your wood screw in. Same as when I went all the way to 94, I basically just left 2 inches of space at the very end. For the 4-foot side, I went 2, 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, and 46. Just leaving that 2 inches at the very end again, just so there isn't any splitting on it. I thought I was gonna run out of screws for some reason. I bought a huge box worth. I still have more than probably 75% of the box left. So if you guys want some free wood screws, come hit me up. I'm not using them for anything. I used a little drill bit I had, and I made sure to mark onto the drill bit that I can only screw this far in before I basically go past the amount that I want. This is a guidance hole for your actual screw to go in, so that you don't want it to go all the way through the board, because that defeats the whole purpose. You just want it to make it a little bit easier for when you do put the wood screws in. This whole process took me probably around, I don't know, like 15 minutes. I was being really lazy about it. I would drill a couple holes, think about how sore my leg was getting, drill a couple more holes, go mess around with the top layer of the deadlift platform to check to see if it was dry, drill a couple more holes, start working on my power rack, and eventually I finished drilling all the holes. I went around putting all the wood screws in just so I didn't have to carry it, and I wouldn't have to move around with them or anything. Like I put it in my pocket to poke myself, and I just drilled the holes in afterwards. So that was basically the majority of the work that you'll have to do for the deadlift platform. Now, after your top layer dries and you're able to basically put your finger on it without it being oily or anything, for some reason mine was really oily, and I had to take a disinfectant wipe or like one of those Clorox wipes, and I just wiped it all down, and afterwards it wasn't oily. Now this is the reason why I actually have 2 stall mats here. So you want to take off 2 feet by 4 feet at the end of each stall mat, just so you'll have a straight edge basically on each of them. And I decided to put the 4x4 left over at the bottom of my deadlift platform. It might be just because my basement's really empty, or it could be the fact that it's not built correctly. I mean, there could be like a soft layer underneath it or something with the foundation, but my when I was deadlifting on there, just messing around with a stall mat on top, it was making a lot of noise. So I opted to put basically 2 layers of stall mat. So I put stall mat, plywood, and then 4x4 at the bottom, which is, it's 4 feet by 8 feet then. I forgot to buy a silver Sharpie or like a white Sharpie or any kind of really bright colored Sharpie, and I used chalk. I basically took the other half of the 4x4 plywood, smacked it right on top of the stall mat, and I just traced the line at the very end. This wasn't the smartest idea because my deadlift platform's a little uneven. So if you guys are doing it, make sure to measure it out. I measured 2 feet on each end for the centerpiece and basically just slid it in there. After cutting my stall mats, I tossed the 2 stall mats on the side, and I also did the exact same thing when it came to measurements. Since it was all an inch in, I knew I wasn't gonna hit the screws, so I went by the whole 8 inches separation again. With just the platform, the top layer of the platform, I just used wood screws. I didn't use any wood glue or anything like that. I think I got too lazy and I decided not to. For the stall mats, you actually need to put washers down, because if you don't have washers down, they'll just go straight through the stall mat and it won't catch on. But if you have washers there, it'll stop you from drilling through the stall mats all the way. After that, I had a pretty functional deadlift platform. The only thing was it was still making a lot of noise. So there was a little hack that my friend Vincent told me about. I had an old yoga mat that I used to put underneath my treadmill that it was a 4x8 piece. So I cut that in half and I just folded it up a couple times and I just toss it on the side whenever I deadlift, basically. Yeah, that's about it. I don't have anything else to talk about, so good luck building your deadlift platform. Yeah, wait for the next episode of me being bored. Bye.